Holy Spirit, come, fall fresh upon us as we hear these ancient writings and listen to their call in our times. Guide us in our wrestling of the biggest questions, O God, and help us to know you are here. Amen. So, dear ones, today we continue on the road less traveled, our journey of looking at the challenging and often countercultural teachings of Jesus. And today we look at the choice to trust in God. It's a hard choice, but it's a choice that we are invited into because, again, to be a follower of Christ is to journey on that road less traveled. So again, today we're taking on the choice to trust, to lean into God's call, to release our fears, and step into our faith. Now, perhaps the best place to start with this one is to clarify what that perhaps doesn't mean. What that choice to trust doesn't mean that by putting our faith in God that we will prosper financially. The choice to trust in God doesn't mean that our football team will win the playoffs. Sounds like a joke, but I heard it recently. The choice to trust in God doesn't mean that in this life we will know only comfort and ease, or conversely, that we won't know pain or suffering. The choice to trust in God doesn't mean any of that. But before we get into what the choice to trust in God maybe does mean, I want to revisit a theological concept that many of you have heard me speak about, and that's something called process theology. Now, most of how I understand, preach, and teach about God is through the lens of process theology, which for me means that God is intimately involved in the world and that the world deeply matters to God. In process theology, we encounter a relational God who is radically present. This is a God who engages with all of creation in deeply intimate and personal ways. This is a God that is immanent and exists in such a way there is no place that God is not. Process theology provides a framework of understanding God not as a distinct and distant God of control, but as a God of radical presence, where we are an essential part of something beautiful called co-creation, where we are continually creating the world alongside God. Co-creation means that we need God and God needs us for that process of creation to continue. Co-creation means that we are all invited to continue the work of creating and evolving this world with God, bending the arc towards justice and working to achieve God's dream of love and flourishing for all. So, when I hear scriptures telling us, do not be afraid and trust in God, I'm going to lean into that understanding of God. I'm going to lean into an understanding of a relational, radically present God that is calling us into co-creating a world where all flourish in love and justice. So within that context, then, what may it mean to trust in that God? Well, for me, then, trusting in God means that we rest in the knowledge that we abide in God's radical and unconditional love and grace. That there is nothing we can do or say or be that could separate us from God's mercy, God's embrace, or God's love. Nothing. That we are unconditionally loved because of and in spite of ourselves. That mercy is ours, forgiveness is ours. That we are loved and accepted by a God who knows us and who sees us. And out of that unconditional love, grace, and mercy, we are called to offer all of that in return to the world. And to enter in the struggle for justice and peace alongside God. And in that struggle, trusting that God is going to provide us with the courage to step into that struggle for justice and peace, and that God will continue working alongside us in that struggle day after day. And trusting in God means that we will most likely not see the results of our labors. Or put most eloquently in parts of a poem written by Ken Unterner that goes like this. We accomplish in our lifetime only a tiny fraction of the magnificent enterprise that is God's work. We plant seeds that one day will grow. We water seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise. We lay foundations that will need further development. We provide yeast that provides effects beyond our capabilities. We cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something and to do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it is a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for God's grace to enter and to do the rest. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are workers, not master builders, ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future, not our own. Trusting in God means courageously stepping in to do the work of planting the seeds of love, peace, and justice alongside our God, often being able to do only a tiny fraction, and even then not knowing the end results. And it means trusting in God's ultimate dream that all of creation will flourish in a realm of love, peace, and justice. And finally, perhaps the most important component of trusting in God is trusting in God's presence. Again, trusting in God doesn't mean prosperity or that we'll have an easy life, freedom from illness, financial security, happy marriages. Instead, it means trusting that God will be present during both good times and bad. We know that life will have shadow and light, good and bad, love and loss. that life will have its trials and its times of radical joys and celebrations. Trusting in God is resting in the belief that there is nothing that will separate us from God's presence through any of those times. Trusting in God is recognizing the promise of radical presence, not of any outcome or result. It is recognizing the promise that regardless of what we face in life, we will not face it alone. It means that we are never alone. We are never alone. God will be there, whether we ask for that presence or not. Trusting in God means that at all times, God will be present. And on that, we can depend. And trusting in God doesn't just mean God's present in our individual lives. It also means recognizing God's radical presence everywhere in our world. It means God is deeply and intimately involved in all of creation. It means that God is radically present in all of the chaos and mess of our world, in all times, in all places, in all beings, in all weeks, including this past week. There is no place or being where God is not. It means that God is always and eternally present, calling and coaxing all of creation forward into love and justice and peace. Trusting in God actually means a whole heck of a lot. It means trusting we are unconditionally and radically loved. It means trusting that we will have both the courage and God's accompaniment in the hard work of bending the arc towards love and justice, and that we will most likely not see the fruits of our labors. And we got to trust in God's vision, God's dream. And trusting in God means resting in the belief that there is nothing, absolutely nothing that will separate us from God's presence. And honestly, I think it would be way easier to trust in God to help a football team win. It would ask so much less of us. Less of our hearts, less of our beings. Putting that sort of trust in God leaves us less vulnerable, less afraid. Because to trust God with my heart, with loving me unconditionally with mercy, to trust God to stand with and for and by me through all times, and then to trust God with this very world, that is quite the leap of faith. But that is the choice to trust that we are called on the road less traveled. And may we walk with the still speaking God on that journey. May it be so. Amen.